I am fantasy author Elle Penelope, and welcome to my imaginary friends, a look behind the scenes at an author mapping the worlds in my head and making them a reality. Hello friends, today is Sunday, July 14th, 2019, and this is episode 22 of my imaginary friends. I'm Leslie. If I sound sort of like a smoker, it's because I think I'm losing my voice. I am at Readercon, which is a science fiction and fantasy convention in Quincy, Mass., just outside of Boston. And today is the last day. I'll be flying home tonight. I've been here since Thursday evening, and last night was karaoke night, hence the scratchy voice. But I'm having a great time. And this week's best thing is Readercon. So I had heard about this conference before, but I had not ever come, first time here. And I got an email a few months ago about being on panels, and so I submitted some panel ideas, and one of them was picked up. And so I ended up being on 4 panels here, in addition to doing an autograph session. And so it's this week's best thing. And this has been a week of like a lot of stuff has happened. So I have my list over here because I'm going to forget because it's been a lot of things packed in to a few days. But yeah, I've met really great people, and the panels were great. I was actually pulled out of the audience to be on a fourth panel because I think I only had 3 initially, which was fun. It was actually really fun. Like a few years ago, that would have terrified me. It would have scared me to death. I wouldn't have been able to do it probably. But I've been doing a lot of like public speaking since publishing, and forcing myself out of my comfort zone so that I can meet people and be comfortable and talk to people, and which I like doing, like even though I'm an extreme introvert, I do like that. But yeah, so it was great. I was on, the first one was on cultural hauntings in the African American community, and it was moderated by Tananarive Due, who is one of the guests of honor here, which I've talked about in the podcast before. And that was really great. Then I think it was the next panel was the one I was pulled up on, and it was on imagining a decolonized or an uncolonized Africa in fiction, and that was fantastic. It was on a panel with really smart people, and like educators and historians, and I was like, well, I'm not any of those things, but it was a really cool topic, and I got feedback from people in the audience that they enjoyed it. The next one was the one that was honoring Tananarive Due, and she was actually there, which was interesting. Like, it was great. It was, on one hand, it's kind of, I was freaked out about that, just being on it, and just because, as I've said before, that Tananarive Due has been a huge influence on me, which was why it was an amazing honor to be able to be on the panel that honored her, and to talk to people and have her be in the audience was another thing that was terrifying and also very, very cool. And just getting to meet her and interact with her. And she has amazing energy. She's like a very just positive, like warm person that you just feel good being around. And so that's been great. And then I feel like I'm forgetting something. And then yesterday I was on the panel, the one that I proposed, which was incorporating the media into fantasy worlds. And that was a full house, and it went really well. I was nervous about moderating and coming up with the questions and making sure it was interesting to people. Like you want people to come and not like fall asleep or just be on their phones bored the whole time. And I felt like we had a lot of engagement, and so that was great. And then karaoke. So a good time was had by all, and I do hope to come back. So if you are a reader or writer of fantasy and sci-fi or speculative fiction, I recommend Readercon. I've had a good time here, and it's felt well organized and well run, and that's also important too. Other things that happened this week: I saw Hamilton again last Saturday, I think. It was in Baltimore. If you are listening to this when this comes out, I think it's in Baltimore for another couple of weeks, and it's not sold out, so you can get tickets. The touring cast was good. We saw an understudy for Aaron Burr. I'm always like, but this guy has an understudy. They don't call it that. What do they call it? Swing? No, swing is something else. Standby. But he's basically the understudy for Alexander Hamilton, for Aaron Burr. He had like 3 or 4 roles. So, they have to be really good to be able to to know all the roles, but still not quite as good as the person they actually cast. But I really enjoyed the performance. I thought that, I think this is the fourth time that I've seen it. And so I saw it twice on Broadway. So I went to the Kennedy Center in DC, and then this was at the Hippodrome in Baltimore. And they all have things that I like and things that I don't like about them. But overall, I really, and Hamilton, I love Hamilton. And it's always funny because I think I was sitting next to someone who'd never seen it before. And that's always nice to kind of just get their reaction to it as things are happening and as they're like surprised by things or, so Hamilton, big thumbs up. It really just re-energizes me. And then I forgot to mention last week that I saw Fast Color, the movie. It is, by now it might be able to be rented. I had to buy it on Amazon Prime because it wasn't available for rent. It's with Gugu and Mbatha-Raw, and it is this like 3 generations of Black women who have superpowers and how they have to hide, and there's this like shady government organization tracking them. And it's an indie film, and it was really well done, and I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend that as well if you haven't seen it. Just a different take on, like, I say superpowers, they're powers, but they end up being super. And to see that from a Black woman's perspective is, and it wasn't written or directed by, it was written and directed by a white woman, and I think it was cast colorblind, if I'm not mistaken. So I was having the conversation actually here at Readercon about colorblind casting in terms of the movie Ma with Octavia Spencer, and how someone expected it to deal, it's called Ma, you've got Octavia Spencer, they expected it to deal with sort of like a mammy trope and maybe be a satire of that, and because she was cast colorblind, it did not, and so if a segment of the audience was expecting that, and the creators, that wasn't in their mind because that's just not what they were doing with the movie. But because of the casting and the physicality of Octavia Spencer and the way that Black women, of certain body types have been portrayed, and there's all of this history that when you don't know and you don't take into consideration, probably because of ignorance, I'm guessing, then it leaves the audience who was expecting that. And maybe it's wrong to have that expectation. Like that's something to interrogate. Like if your default is to expect that when that's not what they were doing, that's also interesting. But I think it's something that you have to acknowledge and that you have to be aware of. So I don't know why I started talking about that, but colorblind casting, yeah. So Fast Color, recommended. Also, in preparation for coming here and being on this Donna Reeve Do panel, I had watched Horror Noir, which is a documentary that she produced that is about Black horror films, basically. And it interviews a bunch of great people. It's really, really good. I've not been a horror fan. Like I've never watched any of the Freddy Krueger or the Friday the 13th. I don't even know the names of these movies, but I've never seen any of that. I saw Scream, like all the Screams, but not a horror fan. But like seeing the documentary and them talking just about the history and all of that stuff. My brain is a little bit fried now, but it was really good. And it, even though I don't write horror, even though I'm in the horror anthology, Sycorax's Daughters, and I have a short story, which is a monster story. But, so it is horror story. And in Black speculative fiction, I think often, without trying to, veers into what is considered horror, or there's a lot of parallels that aren't, when it's not called horror, it's called something else. There's mythology and folklore, and you have these folkloric figures and like monsters, but if it's not marketed under that lens, then we're not calling it that. But yeah, so I thought it was interesting to think about it from that way. Like, what is horror, and how are we contributing to it, even if we don't call it that? Like, I write paranormal romance, and I don't do like vampires and stuff. Mine are angels and jinn. But a werewolf, if you're doing wolf shifters, where that line of horror to paranormal romance is
kind of nebulous, I think. And a lot of these terms are just marketing, and they're for categorization. And so if you're talking about a romance, you're not talking about a horror that's designed to either scare you or provoke you to thought about certain things. But there are the tropes that are there, and there are overlapping elements that I think are cool. So writing, I was doing well before I got here. I knew I wouldn't be able to write at a conference, but I still hoped I would be able to write at a conference. Hope against hope, but I haven't written anything. I haven't read anything. My mind has been like buzzing with conversations and ideas, and then just needing to rest. And I don't know if I'll have time to edit out my tea drinking this time. I'm sorry in advance because I'm on the road. But yeah, so I did get, I think I have about 15,000 words on book 4 of Earthsinger Chronicles in my fast draft. And I did start to get to the point where they were feeling even worse than normal. And so there's 4 storylines that I'm writing, and 3 of them feel good. 1 of them doesn't. And I do realize that I was doing a lot of throat clearing. Like when you first start to write, the first scenes a lot of times don't make it in because you're still finding your way into the story. And, you know, that's what fast drafting is about, finding your sea legs sort of as you get into the story. So I know that I was doing that. And I'm not worried about that because that's what the revision is for. But this one storyline is just feeling wrong. And so there's times when you have to push through and draft and just get the words in. And there are other times when you have to step back. And I don't want to just write words for the sake of writing words. Even though it is a fast draft and it's supposed to be fast and dirty, I think that like going a few steps and then evaluating, and then go a few steps more and then evaluate. And I come to the time when I need to evaluate, which brought me to this YouTube video on, I've forgotten his name. I think it's Alan Watts. And he teaches screenwriting in LA. And it's just this interview that I came across. But he has a book called The 90-Day Novel that is on Kindle Unlimited. And so I checked it out. It's a lot of words, and so it's hard to skim. But in the YouTube video I found, he was talking about dilemma being at the heart of a story, and that a dilemma is a problem that can't be solved without creating another problem. And so he has a slightly, just his own method of teaching plotting and outlining, which I watched a couple of the different interviews it gave me some good ideas about thinking about character in a slightly different way, which is probably what I need as I reevaluate this storyline that is feeling like I'm somehow going in the wrong direction, when everything else feels like, even though it's fast drafting and it's not good yet, it's at least the emotion is there. This other storyline, if I can't get the emotion, then when I go back to revise, it'll be a lot harder, because I know when the emotion is there in the fast draft, then I can build everything else around that when I make it pretty and nice and real. So I will get back to writing tomorrow, maybe today at the airport. I don't know, I can't promise. And I forgot to pack my Alpha Smart. I forgot to pack a bunch of stuff. I didn't pack the right headphones with the right microphone for this. I didn't pack my Alpha Smart. I didn't pack any wall adapters for my chargers. I have all these charging cables, and I'm usually much better about that. So 2 weeks from now, I go to RWA, and I will do a much better job of packing and get all the right things that I'm supposed to have. And I have a list, although the wall adapters aren't in the list because they're usually in the bag in my backpack that never moves. So I don't know why I took them out. The Alpha Smart, I didn't make it onto the list. I forgot. And if I had my Alpha Smart, I probably would have just pulled it out, gone to the con suite or, somewhere in a corner and just started typing, which I can do with my laptop, obviously, but I have not yet done that. So, this is a short episode because I forgot the proper headphones. I'm recording on my phone, and I felt like I had a lot to say, but I'm still feeling buzzy in my head and overstimulated from being at this conference. So I don't know. I might do an addendum when I get home, and this might be late, but that is it for now. So my goals for next week, get the words in, try to get 2 scenes a day going forward with that. And because I have to prepare for another week at RWA where getting words will be dodgy. And I still want to finish this fast draft by early mid-August, if at all possible. So that is what's going on with me this week. And I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next time. Until then, happy reading.
For episode show notes and to learn more about me and my books, go to lpenelope.com. Subscribe to My Imaginary Friends wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the video episodes on YouTube. Please leave a rating and review to help support the show.